attending this meeting. Meetings are recorded for future viewing, and we are privileged to gather on the traditional territory of the Kwakwaka'wakw. I'll call the meeting to order. Before we adopt agenda, I just wanted to just reiterate this. So various readings, first reading, which we did, tabling or introduction. The second reading of a bylaw is discussion in principle and on the context of the bylaw, and the third reading equals final discussion, including any changes made along the way. So just wanted to remind council that once we have a public hearing, we can continue to work through the bylaw, but with input from the public, and we can stay at second reading until we feel comfortable with the bylaw, okay? I would like to propose on the agenda order, because I believe I've heard from council that the official community plan we were fairly comfortable with. It was the maps, that stage that we were at. So if we can reverse those and have the official community plan be A and the zoning bylaw be B. And also add a section in camera under 91A. If council is comfortable with that, can I ask for a motion to accept the agenda as amended? Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay. All right, so we'll move straight to the official community plan, or OCP. And just ask again for council, we are in agreement that we feel at this point until public input fairly comfortable with the OCP document. It was the map we were working through. Am I correct in that assumption? Yeah, here, two heads. Okay, yep, Councillor Cole.
Yeah, I was hoping to see, do we have a plan for more local pictures in here yet, or that was brought up?
Yeah, Kevin, did.
Yeah, through your worship. Councillor Cole, that certainly was brought up, and what we've done is provided the entire document in Word format to Pete, so that he can take the images that were going to be provided and integrate them into that document, and I can work with him to make sure those get integrated appropriately.
So our staff is going to handle the pictures? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, my understanding is the pictures were to come from staff, and that I'll work with Pete Connor and that to make sure those get in there.
Okay. Thank you.
And I believe that through various contacts and things that we've had, we have a bit of a database of photos that people have permission to use. So, okay. Okay, so then we'll head to the back of the document where we have our maps. And Councillor Cole, you can go ahead and if you like, and then we'll have others jump in as feel they have.
If I may, Your Worship, I also can bring up the maps and share my screen for any of the maps that council wishes to look at, and we can go through them, the key components that council wishes to discuss at that time.
What are different maps, I mean? Where did you get yours? On the back of the OCP.
Is this another edition that was sent out?
Yeah, it's upstairs. So the three maps that are included, just to confirm, Kevin, are an OCP existing.
Maybe Kevin should just put the map.
Yeah, why don't you just put the maps up, Kevin? So because we all have 10 different copies. Yeah.
Yeah, and so what I'll read through the different maps that are integrated into the OCP. What I recommend is we'll start with the proposed land use map, and then we'll work through the town-owned properties, transportation map, and utilities, and then utilities maps if council wishes to touch base on that. So the three maps we have are the proposed land use, town-owned lots, transportation, and underground utilities are the four primary maps to the OCP.
Yeah, we don't have those maps. Really, I've got three maps. We got existing town utilities, existing sidewalks, and proposed land use map. So which one am I missing?
So just sorry, Derek, we didn't redo the maps because we hadn't done any changes, and so that would be my fault. I asked staff not to make copies again, but we have copies of all those maps. And they were the ones, the really big ones that were made.
Mhm.
And so the most up-to-date version of the OCP that we provided had the 4 sets of maps in. Each maps were then broken into a key plan and then area maps for blowing those up also that we did provide. And that was done a while back as sort of just because they're a challenge to read. Things that we did add, road names, things like that to give a little bit better context. The last conversation we had about the maps, I'll start with the proposed land use map because that seems to be where the majority of comments are. Can you guys see my my map, and can you see my pencil moving around on the map?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So my understanding from our conversation is these are the existing commercial lots currently. And this is an existing town lot here in this area. The comments that we've received to date is that this piece here, and this should not, and this piece here should not be commercial. They should, these pieces, this piece here should remain as residential. This should remain as residential. This is actually town owned and actually should be turned into either consistency for this designation of residential or turned into a different designation to reflect that's owned by the town itself, and that these parcels should be also designated as light industrial, like the adjacent parcels. That is the comments and notes that I've had from our previous conversations. That's when we actually put our conversation on hold with regards to the mapping at that time.
Okay, I have a question from Councillor Barron.
That long skinny piece, isn't that actually designated as park? Because Julie is asking for money to deal with a park there.
Through your worship, no, it's not fundamentally designated as park. It is actually town owned, but not designated as park itself. It is actually, you can raise, it actually has a title raised on that. So it's a fee simple parcel. It is town owned and therefore it has been managed as park based on my understanding, but isn't a designated park under the actual legislation.
So it could go with the same color that we have for all of our other town owned lands.
That's correct.
Yes.
The parcel that's kitty corner from the existing commercial property on Mine Road and Campbell Way. I remember, I know we said, no, it shouldn't be retail, and then I pondered it a little longer. I thought, this has been so long. But we actually did discuss having that as retail because the intention of this map is future use. Like it's what the future looks like. And the reality is if somebody lives down at the end of Mine Road, do they need to drive all the way up Mine Road to drive all the way down Campbell Road if they need to get whatever retail service that might be offered at that spot? So I am personally more inclined to leave that as retail. The one across from it already has condominiums on it. That has to be residential. So that's a no-brainer. But I think the one kitty corner, because this is future looking, not to, I'd rather have a retail convenience store there than a tire shop or a major industrial something or minor industrial project. That's my input.
Councillor Cole, did you have a comment to make?
Thank you, Mayor Wickstrom. Yeah, I totally disagree with Councillor Downey there. I'm really concerned us labeling this as future commercial will take away from our downtown. It's as simple as that. People will drive in and they're not going to go to town if we label this as future commercial. I think we can address the, when we talk about the zoning, we can talk about adding maybe some uses to M1 that would address, I know the concern is that we don't want an industrial property sort of right at the gateway of town. But I will note in M1, we've got offices, like the whole forestry office is not captured in that zoning. There's no professional services captured in that zoning. professional, or what's the other one? It's escaping me, but we can maybe talk about that. Yeah, I'm really, and this, the one property where the Petrocan is, it looks like, yeah, right there. There's multiple properties there. I'm just not seeing okay, yeah, there's one lot line there. So right where that lot there, I think should be multi-residential. It's again, where this is the future OCP map, but we don't have any more multi-residential land being approved, and we've got a huge housing problem, and we're redoing our whole zoning bylaw, we're redoing the OCP, we have not identified one new piece of property for multi-residential. And I feel the same way with the hospital property as well that you've got circled there. So that to me should be residential. The lot, and I believe the landowners next to the Petrocan, you know, I spoke with that person recently, and they have plans for townhouses and stuff, like actual plans drawn up. I don't know at what point they did that, but I don't think that owner wants it commercial anyways. So to me, this should just be the one commercial lot where the Petrocan is, and then it should be purple, and then add some more residential in there.
Okay, so I'm going to go for what I think is the low hanging fruit that we agree on. Kevin, on your one where it says here, designate as other town owned. I just want to look around the table. Does everybody agree to just designate that as town owned, and it follows through down, you know, it's just blue, no use, just town owned?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Sure.
can we have,
Oops.
should we do this? We should do this as a motion, I guess. So a motion to designate, I'm not sure what that parcel is.
It's called the green belt along Campbell Way, or?
That works.
Yeah, Campbell Way Greenbelt as town owned. So motion, a mover for that?
I'll move it.
Seconded? Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. I think we also agree on the residential across the street from Petro-Canada, because it already has townhouses. Am I correct in that?
And the apartment buildings.
And the apartment buildings, yes.
Correct.
Correct. So can I have a motion then to label that property across from the Petro-Canada as residential? Motion. Seconded. Any discussion on it? All those in favor?
Is it already zoned?
Opposed? It's probably, yeah, but that's just, we're just making changes to what they proposed, right? Okay. Yeah.
Excuse me, Mayor Wickstrom, can I just get a clarification on that last motion? It was the Campbell Way Greenbelt that was being rezoned as.
Town owned.
Town
Town
owned,
owned.
not, yeah, labeled as town owned,
Labeled.
yeah.
So we'll create a designation called town owned for those town owned parcels that you want designated in that manner.
Okay. All right, so, oh, and sorry, and then the other one would be, maybe, I know we made the motion already, but beside Petro-Canada there, the apartments remain as residential.
That's this parcel here for clarity.
Yes.
Oh.
So moved, yeah, seconded, all those in favor? Opposed, carried, okay.
So I want to go back to this purple. As all that purple is light industrial. So currently, there is a building on the end of the, like on the street corner, and the Legion that we're proposing to turn into light industrial? Or is it just the old church that looks to me like it's the two properties?
Remember, oh yeah, the Legion.
The Legion's there. So we're looking to,
This is future use.
for future use, we're saying if the Legion didn't want that land and building anymore, we want to be able to turn that into light industrial.
It already is. I'm proposing leaving it the same M1 light industrial. This is saying in the future, it's going to be downtown commercial or. So I think it should just be left. And I think we can, when we look at the zoning, we can look at adding some uses into M1 because frankly, if you go along that street, there's a bunch of properties like the Forest Service is not zoned for there. Like we should have add offices into M1 and professional and what's the other one?
Yeah.
So
Services.
those parcels currently,
Oh,
here, let me just so we're all on the same page. This is your existing zoning map. This is the actual, so these are the parcels here that we're speaking of. I'm assuming you can see what I'm doing.
Mhm.
These are the parcels we're speaking of right here. Those are currently zoned as agricultural 1, as you can see here. All your like the waterfront piece or the Campbell Way piece is all zoned agricultural 1, as you can also see here.
See, I have less of a concern about the retail and not drawing people downtown because we're really just talking about one area and there's a Petro-Canada, that would be Kitty Corner. The other one stays residential. I think with those changes, I look at it more of an asset to people living here and less of an eyesore of having something industrial on the corner. I would rather have that than I would have something industrial personally. I the way we have it proposed, you can eliminate your concerns, the concerns that you might have, Councillor Cole. Go ahead.
Yes, the main concern is it's going to be a fast food place there or something, and it's going to take away from our downtown. We got struggling restaurants, struggling businesses. You know, there's been one new business open in our town, and since I can remember, and I could rattle off a whole bunch that have closed since I've been here and never to be opened again. So there's already a decent looking building there. I highly doubt it's going to get torn down and a big industrial drop press forge is going to be built there. There's already a decent looking building. So, yeah, the real concern is that we're looking into the future and we're saying that all those uses on that corner could be the same as downtown. And
through
just doesn't
your
work.
worship, just for conversation, one of the things council, if council does want to make it commercial, because it will be an OCP change and a zoning change, council can control the types of uses that could potentially be on that. Right now, across the street is currently zoned commercial CS1, commercial service 1, which is basically it's sort of like a service commercial zone is almost like a very similar to a light industrial zone in many ways. So the existing zone allows for manufactured home sales, motor vehicle sales, recreational vehicle boat sales, restaurants, cafes, drive-ins, motels, garden sales, et cetera, et cetera. So council has the ability, is if there's a common ground, because there obviously is some difference of opinion here, council has the opportunity to go, well, okay, maybe some sort of commercial does belong here, but you can actually either create a zone or modify a zone for these specific sites to potentially truncate the uses so it does not impact your downtown or conflict with those uses that are permitted in the downtown area. So that is a conversation that we could have with regards to particular zones if council decides that this area could be a commercial use of some kind.
Do you want to make a motion?
I'll motion that we leave the parcel kitty opposite of Petro-Can, kitty corner from Petro-Can, as commercial. Right.
Do you have a seconder?
Yep.
There's a seconder. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed?
I'm opposed.
Okay.
Death of downtown.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Next, we have that other piece, the blue over there.
Yeah, so currently this is a town-owned parcel. It was designated as institutional for potential future institutional uses. We did get some comments that this really should be designated for residential purposes at this time.
Okay. Go
Yeah, I'll
ahead.
be-
Oh, sorry, Councillor Downey and then Councillor Cole.
Kevin, you state that there's desire to have that as housing.
That was some of the comments that we've discussed previously, and some of the notes that we have through the various notes that we've received through the town, that this town-owned parcel here really should be maintained for residential purposes.
So that's not from the public, that's from listening to us, our table.
That's correct.
What did the public say?
The public, we have no specific comment on this piece from the public.
Sorry, Councillor Cole, I jumped over top of your next. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's gonna make a motion that we change that to residential, and for future, we just say residential here, but when we go into the zoning, my intention is multi-residential. We actually own a little piece right up to the corner there too. That for most people, yep, think that that's the hospital's property, but it isn't.
Okay, seconder for that motion?
I'll second it so we can talk about it.
So if would residential also include something, Kevin, like seniors complex or not seniors complex, like extended care, assisted living, that kind of thing?
It certainly can. It really comes down to how we place the zoning in. Care facilities themselves are regulated through the CARE Act, and under your current zoning, those are permitted pretty much in any of your multifamily zones. So I don't think the approach of having it residential and putting it as a multifamily would hinder the fact for future extended care or seniors housing if needed.
Any other questions?
Are we setting up false pretenses then? Yeah, my personal belief is that we need that for assisted living or future facilities, seniors.
Mm-hmm. So I don't think so. When you look at, even if you look at the other town-owned parcels, there's many town-owned parcels that are zoned residential. You being the owner, the town being the owner, if you wanted to construct assisted living on a residential parcel or something of that, it's consistent with the designation in the official community plan. And I don't think having it as a residential versus institutional, if you look at the institutional designation, and you look at what is designated institutional, hospitals, schools, things of that nature. And so it really, I think residential fits sort of what you're speaking of now, fine. And it would not hinder those forms of development in the future, but may allow for some flexibility if you wish to do some other form of housing that you may not be contemplating at this time. The institutional designation is very much a institutional designation where you have a town running, owning, and operating a facility, or the province running, owning, operating a facility, or some level of government or organization that's an institutional organization owning and operating a facility on that site. So it really comes down to the intent of future use. But from what I'm hearing, you would be looking at more towards a residential use, and it behoove the community to actually have that parcel as residential versus institutional.
Councillor Barron, did you have a question, or otherwise I'll go to Councillor Cole?
I was just gonna say, just that false hope kind of thing, if we change this in our OCP or put forward to the public to go to a residential or multi for that matter, Derek, because I mean, I agree with you, we need townhouses or patio homes or something, whatever you want to call them. Are we then setting it up for somebody to want to come in and start developing it? I guess it's kind of really.
So if I may, Your Worship, there's a couple of different ways we can look at it. In the OCP, residential isn't going to provide false hope one way or the other. It's that sort of the umbrella, this could be residential in the future. When we speak to zoning, you can do lots of different options with your zoning. Under the zoning component, you can have it multifamily, you can have it. I don't think it speaks to false hope fundamentally, because there's nothing that you're doing right now that fetters future judgment of either this council or any future council of what makes most sense for the community at that time. And so I personally don't think that making this residential and potentially zoning it for multi-family in the future really provides any sort of false pretense on the town's behalf.
Councillor Cole, you had a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of make the point, we have offered and tried to talk to VHA about this land. They have no interest in, they're not in the housing business. They don't want to build doctor's residence or anything like that. As you guys know, I spent years in the maintenance at the hospital, and you know, it's been kicked around, adding on to the hospital, et cetera, et cetera. And if they do that, it's out into the lawn. There's plenty of room on the site. There's lots of land that the hospital owns already. And this land has a high potential to be developed quickly. We were talking about Pioneer Hill at our last meeting, and I mentioned, you know, we have no idea if the sewer can handle a whole bunch of houses there. We'd have no idea if the water is there. That all needs to be determined. Now, this property, I'm going on a hunch, is probably serviced and kind of ready to go. So it is something that could really happen easier, I think, than some of the other future development. And again, I just go back to, we don't have any additional housing being proposed, multi-residential. So.
Okay, call the question then. All those in favor of moving back to residential? Opposed, it carries. Okay. And is that it from that map? Are we otherwise comfortable? Councillor Cole, go ahead.
Yes, we were just talking about the green belt along Campbell Way. Well, there's also a green belt along Mine Road that is shown as a road allowance, and I brought this up on another map. So it's the big white part along here. I am pointing at my map. Kevin, do you know what I'm referring to? So the property on the corner.
Just going through the various notes, sorry, because I do have some of the notes. No, that's not the one. So are you speaking here? Oh, this property
Yes.
here. Sorry, Councillor Cole.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did look into that for you. Sorry, I should have commented on that. I did look into that. The reason this is white is it's actually not a separate legal entity. It is actually deemed as road dedication. So it's actually not a parcel in and of itself, and that's why it's shown as white. This is shown as white here, and this is shown as white here, because that's actually not a parcel of any kind. It is a road dedication, and so your road dedication in this location is this wide at that location, and you can see it happens a couple different weird little situations along one. You've seen this here too. That's actually a road dedication where you have a few wider spots along that have been dedicated in that manner.
So what can we do with that land?
Well, it's basically it's public land for the purpose of transportation, right? And so it's been dedicated. So how statutory right-of-ways of this nature work is they're for public right of passage. So trails, you could use it as park space, you could use it as any of that. It comes down to how you wish to maintain that land as the town. That's any right-of-way that the town owns, right? So any right-of-way you have as a town, you can put your policy and your framework in place on how you wish to use that right of way and how you wish to maintain that right of way for particular use.
Can it be developed?
Not as in like land development, like buildings and things of that nature. No, you'd actually have to create a subdivision and a divestment to be able to do that, which is actually quite challenging. Because it was taken as road right of way, but it can be used for transportation purposes and public purposes and things of that nature. Has to be maintained for access to all people within the community.
But we could change that, but you're saying that's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a challenging process. Yes,
because I always thought it was just a waste of land, and either sell it to the people whose backyards are there and generate some revenue, or even have light industrial development along there. But I guess you're telling me that's
It is an odd road. It is an odd road dedication. It is, but you do see it quite often that does occur. Like you look at this road dedication here. This is an odd road dedication. Look at the shape of it. It's an odd road dedication. It happens, right? So
Pulling trees too, right?
yeah.
Yeah, and anything else on the map, or are we comfortable then the way it is?
The part of the map that I could see, I'd like to see the rest of it.
The other questions, we had some questions in downtown. The questions in downtown were from an older map, and it had to do with where we were drawing the line in regards to downtown. At our last meeting, it was determined that the gray area was to be deemed as downtown. And so that was one of the comments that we had received.
So that the map you're showing there is different than the one I got in my package today. It shows a mix of gray and red or whatever.
Yeah, that was an older map. This was the map that we provided in our last consultations. Was this updated map, and the map that you did all of your comments on was a slightly older version of the map.
So then I just go back to the light industrial.
Yeah, so I'm trying to pull those comments up, Councillor Cole, because I do have them here somewhere. But yeah, I can pull up the map with the industrial on it here, so we can discuss that. Oops. And that would be map 2-3. And so, yeah, you had some questions. Here, I'll zoom in a bit so it's a little bit easier for your team to see.
So this is an OCP map, right?
This is the OCP designation map. And so one of the conversations we were having is this dotted area. We originally had dotted that out and saying potential for future light industrial. Conversation was with council and with the community that that really didn't make sense. So it's now been redesignated for future recreational residential purposes. And then the comments that we received from you, Councillor Cole, was here. Let me get my pencil because I like to scribble when I'm chatting. So we're under looking at doing this portion as light industrial, looking at a portion over here as light industrial, and a portion here as potential additional light industrial lands.
And the white box, which is out of the town boundary, is the perfect land. Can we not, even though it's out of our town boundary, say future industrial there?
No, you have no authority to state type of use on any future lands. What we did instead of trying to, because you can't designate, but what we did is in the policy framework with regards to boundary extension, because we've identified these areas for future boundary extension, that when boundary extension occurs, the types of uses that should be contemplated and how to contemplate those uses. So to provide a framework for council, if and when you choose to go for a boundary extension, how to do it and say, okay, we're extending this boundary and we're extending this piece here for light industrial purposes. And so it gives you that framework to be able to do that in the future. But you have no ability to basically look at this land and put any designation on it because you have no authority over it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Just a clarification, is that the land, Derek, is that the land when you come into town, it's to, like if you're coming into town, it's on the left-hand side there, that whole marshy area?
No, that isn't. That's
Here, I'll bring up the context map to give you an idea of where we're speaking of the key plan.
that's, you know, when you do the Rotary Trail and then you take East Main sort of back, like that Logan Road.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
That's
So
it's along there. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we speak, sorry, I haven't worked in the office for a while, so I'm having a hard time with all the monitors here. This is the marshy area here.
Okay.
The area that Councillor Cole's speaking of is this area here.
Which is not in our town boundary.
Which currently isn't in the town boundary, but we've identified it for future expansion. That's what this dotted line shows, is that in the future, if the town is going to expand, it'd be looking at these areas here to bring the town out to the main highway.
Thank you.
So yeah, council, my main concern is there's just not enough purple land there, or whatever the color is. there's already a parcel there. It's like half of that is already taken up with the old mill site. And I guess, Kevin, it must be a lot line is why you chose that purple. Like,
Yeah, we chose it for based on lot lines exactly, and we also chatted with the engineers that are the McElhaney engineers that are working on the system about okay, what's really feasible right now in regards to servicing if they wish to have these as serviced parcels.
so that purple, could we scoot it north? Like, just there's an old road that's on the map. I'm just concerned that that's not very deep. Yeah.
In here. Yeah,
Sort of
you know,
after that road is when the topography, like it starts going downhill, like from there. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
what
you
I'm thinking.
So you certainly potentially could. That would be contrary to what we had heard from the community based on this idea of light industrial and residential. So if you do wish to do something of this, I'd strongly recommend that this go back out to the community for review because it'd be contrary to what we received from comments with regards to this area here. At least it certainly could be perceived as such. One of my comments I'd say is, based on all our conversations and based on what we looked at, there is vacant light industrial lands. It's owned, no one's doing anything on it, but there is vacant light industrial lands. So at this time, at least from the reviews that we've done, we don't really see the pressure for light industrial. It's always good to have some in your back pocket and understanding where you're going to go if you do get that pressure. And so it may be my misunderstanding, and so I don't see the pressure for the fundamental need for a ton more light industrial now, as long as you know where it can go in the future. If I'm incorrect in that understanding, please, provide direction on where you think that light industrial land needs to be because of the current industrial pressures that the community is seeing.
I have a question about something that you mentioned with that green or the black the extension that Councillor Cole was talking about that you outlined. Yes, you said it's contrary to what you heard from the public.
Mm-hmm.
So say it has to go back out for public. Would that be though part of the public process when we do second reading?
Oh, we certainly could do it that way, Mayor. The reason I say that is because we had originally identified these lands as potential for future expansion of light industrial purposes. We went out to the public in our last consultation and said, does this make sense or should it be something else? And what we heard is they said this area really should be something else. It shouldn't be industrial purposes. It really should be for either recreational or future large lot residential purposes is what we generally heard. So if we then go back and take a portion of it and keep it as light industrial, it's kind of contrary. And it's not fundamentally contrary. It's just we never asked the question, should we have a portion of it? And it could be perceived that we went in and behind closed doors went and changed it contrary to what we heard. So if council wishes to do this, we need to be very explicit that, yes, we heard what you said. However, it makes sense to do this and let's have some further conversations in regards to it. It's just transparency, making sure that we're very transparent if council wishes to proceed in this fashion. I don't see a fundamental issue with this. However, we just need to be very, very clear so people are aware of the changes being made.
And sorry, one more follow-up question and then Councillor Barron. That would though make light industrial back onto residential there. I see yellow, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, Councillor Barron?
And so I think what I'm hearing you say as well is if we went through the public process and the public agreed, yes, okay, let's slap some purple in there. It could end up the same as our other purple land. Somebody could buy it and not do anything with it.
That is correct.
So if people are coming here to start a business, it's not the fact that there isn't land, it's the fact that there isn't land for sale. Same as people who are coming to buy a house and there are no houses to buy.
That is my understanding, yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Cole?
Yeah, I think the public was concerned that we would be like industrial all the way down to the water. They're more concerned with like what's going on near the water. And I just know that the topograph of that land would be, it's kind of flat at the top and then it, I couldn't even see houses going in there. It's very rugged. But again, I just go to like, do we have people ready to build light industrial? No, because there's no properties for sale. Like, it's a desirable place to live. If you have an idea, you want to build, a welding shop, and you're gonna, take your latest design for a whatever it is, like, there's just nowhere to go. And, we're supposed to be value added to wood, and, the government's beating all this drum, and there's nowhere to build your violin factory or whatever. Kevin, could we not just to the left of the white part we don't own, like, just call that, do a big swath there?
Like do this kind of thing? Yeah, no, all of these are options. All of them are fair and reasonable options. All of them really suggest that we should, if we're going to make these changes, that we just reflect them and make sure that we talk to the property owners and we talk to the general public before we make those changes. All of them are options. I'm putting hard questions to you in regards to, is this fundamentally needed right now, or is it not? Ownership, to Councillor Barron's comments, Couverton owns these lands. I believe they own this piece too, right? So even if we make these light industrial, these two pieces, it doesn't mean that they're going to be available for purchase either, right? So to be aware, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it. It's just be aware, just because we're designating something doesn't necessarily mean you're going to see a whole bunch of development on that land within the foreseeable future.
But yet this is a future, like, this is not.
Oh yeah, very much so.
Zoning,
Yeah.
right? So looking towards the future,
Mhm.
it's just not enough land. Like, that whole purple stuff is pretty much taken up already.
Mhm.
So that's my concern.
Yeah, I'd feel more comfortable with that green piece
Yeah.
lower down than up above behind residential personally. And if it's rugged as you say, Councillor Cole, it's probably rugged for building businesses as well.
Well, it isn't like, if we just added,
Yeah,
a little bit, it's flat at the top and then it gets rugged after, but
yeah. Anyway, are we
yeah,
gonna,
like, can I make a motion that we add east of the property line there? Yeah, you can, Kevin, just
Something like this. Whoops, that's a horrible line, but get the idea.
yeah, an L shape. Motion to add additional
future,
future light industrial.
okay, seconder for that motion? Sure. Okay, any other discussion on that motion?
The idea, if in a magic wand, that white area would more than likely be light industrial as well, right? So you're just putting a border of light industrial around where you hope to have more light.
Yeah.
That's what you're looking to do. Then I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, if there's no further questions, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay,
One question, Mayor Wickstrom, what do we call this parcel of land?
future light industrial.
No, I understand what the motion.
Northeast of, I don't know.
Write a note to talk to Kevin afterwards to get clarification. Please, thank you. Was there anything else on that map?
Just when Kevin's ready, if he could just swoop it back out for the big picture, and I'll just check it one more time, if that's okay.
Got to make sure I don't overwrite my maps. So, how's that looking? Does that work for everyone?
Yes, yeah.
So we've addressed this area.
Yeah.
We've addressed this area. We've addressed this area. Those are the predominant comments that I had received.
I'm still not thrilled about beach beach camp being industrial, but I guess we've already had that discussion. And that's where we're leaving it, I guess.
Okay, great. Onward to, is there another map that you wanted addressed, or was this the biggest concern?
Yeah, I think we should look at them all.
Give Kevin a chance, we don't want him messing up the maps.
Exactly. So we can go into town-owned lots. I'll bring up, actually here, I'll bring up the key plan. So the gist is, what have we missed?
Yeah, I was gonna say along Mine Road, but you cleared that up. That's a
That piece, yeah.
road allowance. Yeah, again, we're missing the lot on Woodland. For some reason, that just constantly falls off the radar, but we own it.
Okay, help me with that one, Counselor Cole.
That
it
is
this
in
one right
that
here?
zone. Yep.
Oops.
About that proximity.
Yeah. Staff can give you the exact address afterwards.
So I'd like to make a motion that we add that to the Woodland property to the map.
Sure, seconded?
Sure, yeah.
All those in favor? Opposed, carried, great. Okay.
If you want me to zoom into any particular area, just let me know and I can certainly do so.
Okay.
Has our staff had a good hard look at this?
I provided it to Pete and Julian to review.
Okay.
And yeah,
Just out of curiosity, just because, like, does something get run at land title office that will populate everything that we own? Because
No, it's not really possible to do that, the way LTSA works. You know, what you'd have to do is actually go to suspected lots and then actually go through each title by title to confirm.
Okay.
Yeah. So there was an existing map that Julian did for us where he colored everything in, sent that through, then we went through, we put it on, and then we reviewed it with him a couple times. Obviously, we've missed this one on Woodland a couple times. I thought we had done that because I remember coloring that in a while back, but obviously we missed it again.
yeah, and we're missing the Centigraph Park and all that around the regional district. So that's pretty huge.
Like this here,
Right. Yeah, right where it says Campbell Way.
that's town owned.
Yep.
There actually is another map that does have
Like this here.
land on.
Right where it says Campbell Way. Yeah.
There's like triangular sort of where the green space on, no, not,
Yep. That's right.
oh, there, oh, yeah, okay, sorry, no.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay,
So motion to add that.
okay, seconded? Yep. All those in favor? Opposed?
Oops. Oh, stop it. When technology works well for you and when it doesn't. There we go.
Yeah, I was assuming you were talking to your computer, not us.
I'm glad.
Yeah, Kevin, can you zoom in right down at the waterfront?
This area or along
Yeah.
beach here?
The green along the waterfront. I think we're missing the lots where we park the boats. Oh, your black line's covering it, but I see it behind it.
Here, I can pull up zoom in of that so we can look at it a little bit better.
Okay, yeah, I see it now. It's just that black line was covering it before.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, see on this one there, look at that.
There you go. Yeah, I'm looking at my handy dandy version of that, and it looks to be the same. So, maybe zoom in right at Long Beach Drive, just past the ferry terminal there.
Right here.
Do we own the lot that the thrift store's on?
No,
No. Remember, we were talking about trading it or,
This triangle piece here in the middle of the screen there. Where the cursor is, right there.
Okay.
Right across the road on my map, it shows a park as well.
Yeah.
yep, there is. And actually, there's a green space all along in between the two sidewalks. That's ours as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's staff can give you clarification, but that should all be green as well.
and what about the access?
Yeah, if it falls within the right of way, it won't be captured.
Okay, okay.
But I will check with.
All right, so we'll leave it without a motion and you can just check if we're allowed to do that.
Yeah.
And any other path that goes in between houses to the beach along Beach Drive are right of ways.
The
not-
right of ways, exactly. And so you'll see like the stairways and stuff through the community, and there's lots of them because you guys got some really cool stairways. You'll see those stairways are all actually considered right of ways, like the one here, this one. Yeah, those are all right of ways.
And can you slide the map over to Hoy Bay? I'm sure that's captured.
Hold on just a sec, Kevin. Whoa. Because Councillor Downey had a question.
Oops, sorry.
You can slide
Oh,
it
okay.
over. My question is this, along Beach Drive, we have some access points for our pumping stations.
Mhm.
In the past, we had residents ask if we would carve off a piece and sell it as a lot to them because they wanted to build, which didn't happen. But it makes me wonder that, you know, the size of these lots, it's an access point, but they have some size to them that we could use them as a park or clear them out as a place for people to put kayaks in and out and such like that.
Yep. So the great question. And so you can see one right here, and then your next one is right here. So what these are a relic from the Land Act and the Land Title Act, saying when any subdivision occurs along the waterfront, that every in an urban environment it's 250 meters, in a rural environment it's every 400 meters, that you legally must provide public access to the water. And that's what these are, right? And so exactly that, they're public accesses to the water. They're a statutory right of way that give public access to the water. So as a town, you can go in there and clean them up and pretty them up and make them look like parks and provide kayak accesses and things of that nature. You can also choose to divest portions of them, but it has to be a public open process and divestment of town-owned lands, right? If this person here wanted to buy a portion of this right away off you to build a new driveway, whatever the purpose, right? You certainly can do things of that nature too. There's another one right here, actually, also right at the end of beach. Yeah, I went and visited all of those the last time I was there. I believe there's a pumping station in one of them.
Yeah.
Maybe it's this one.
I think we have electronics.
How many do we have?
How many? Along beach, I believe there's 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when we look down to these lands, when this is subdivided, they're going to have to do the same thing and provide access. Now it's going to be 250 because you're more an urban environment, and every 250 meters there'll have to be a public access provided to the waterfront.
Nice. Good.
Okay, question, you had a question, Councillor Cole, go ahead.
No, I'm done, thanks.
No, it's something to do with Hoy Bay, I thought you said.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that the land is identified, and it is.
Okay, great. Okay, I think we're good with those. We can, you said there was one more map?
Let me just close these down, make sure I save things. Next would be, so we have the transportation maps. And on the transportation map, there was a note just about we missed the new sidewalk on Pioneer Hill.
Well, that was recently built, yeah.
Yeah, and so that's no problem. We can easily pop that in there. Right here.
Can we, council, maybe consider having staff just cruise around and double check this? Like, I'm just.
Yep, 100%. This all came from staff so none of this was digital before, so we got to actually hand-drawn map, and we've digitized it, and that's what this is. And that's the same thing for the stairs, the bus stops, and all the sidewalks. It was a hand-drawn map provided to us by Julian, and so we'll add this. And once that's added, what we'll do is we can send that back through to Pete and Julian for final review.
Okay,
Can I make a motion that our staff do a physical review of this? Because what I could see happen, it's just gonna go across somebody's desk and they're gonna say it's fine, but I would like to see it actually double checked.
I feel a trust issue, I think. It's, I don't know.
It's not a trust issue.
Okay, well.
There's no seconder. There's no seconder. So that's fine.
Any seconder for that motion? There's none.
That's Kevin's expectation, is that it's gonna be validated, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
I'm comfortable with Kevin's expectation getting passed on.
Okay, so, all right, great. This is fantastic.
And then the one last map we can take a quick look at. I'm guessing you're probably not going to have a whole ton of comments on. There was one comment, why is it WTP and not SW? This WTP is the standardized terminology used for wastewater treatment facilities. That's why it says WTP.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, yeah, this is what we got, which is actually it's excellent. Just so you know, a bit of an aside, the infrastructure in Port McNeill, based on my conversations with our engineering team, are in quite good shape. So as a town, you're in pretty good shape. So just so you know, infrastructure deficit is probably the biggest challenge to any local government right across Canada. So
We're in good shape. Excellent.
Well, I'm not so sure about that. We've got $3 million report on our storm system. We've got a multi-million-dollar report coming on our sewage system. So I'm not so sure, Kevin, that we're in great shape. Like we have a new water pipes in the ground, which is great, but.
Yeah, no, yeah, and I understand what you're saying, Councillor Cole, but the town compared to the state of the majority of local governments, Port McNeill has done a fairly good job of keeping things in good order.
Yeah, I've heard that as well.
Yeah. So.
Sorry, what were you going to say?
So do we want to move to zoning next?
I'm going to ask council for second reading of bylaw 704/2021, OCP, our official community plan.
Repeat that?
Could I get second reading of our official community plan bylaw 704/2021?
And that motion allows us to start the public consultation on the OCP?
Yes, and we'll have to have a discussion whether we want both of those at the same time or two separate public consultations.
Sorry.
Okay. Yes, that's allow it to go to public hearing.
So on the one hand, it would be ready to go if we run it as two processes. Once we get through all this other stuff, it's just ready to go. It's off to the races. And if this doesn't get going anywhere, we can say, no, we're going to go and get this one done.
Yes.
So moved.
Any discussion on that? Remember that changes can still be done at that stage. It just what it allows us to do is to be able to go to public hearing. Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Okay, opposed, carried. I will go to the zoning bylaw. Okay, so what I heard from council last time is if we're going to start at the beginning and just go through the pages. So we'll go to page 7 of 106. And I don't know if there's any notes, any comments that you want to make.
So we added the daycare.
Yeah, we added, sorry, daycare, am I on a different page?
Page 7.
This is, oh, sorry, no, this is the track changes one, it's if you want to grab it there, it's the ones that we had with the changes already.
Yeah, it changes.
Okay, my page says 4 on the bottom, 706 and 106. And it's the very first page after the repeal. Or why do I have something different? Or do you have the same thing? Same?
We have the same document.
Oh,
I didn't go and grab another one
Oh,
because I've got
okay.
10 documents of the same
Yeah.
thing and notes on 10 different documents.
Yes, agreed.
Through your worship, I'm sharing my screen again. I just want to make sure that I'm looking, that we're all on the same page and I'm looking at the same document also.
That's great.
That's what I'm looking at.
Okay, so any other changes on that page here? The subdivision, we've got the one, section 48 Transportation Act.
So through your worship, this is a requirement of Ministry of Transportation when there's subdivision anywhere. This has been reviewed by the ministry and they have requested that we integrate this into the bylaw to reflect the requirements of the ministry when reviewing rezonings or subdivisions within the community.
Okay, next page over.
The one change you see here is the rearing of animals was removed from agricultural use based on the request from council.
Okay, next page then.
Page 7 of daycare addition.
Oh, there's a daycare, yeah, that's the next one. So on page 6, we have nothing, and page 7, we've got, or page 10 of 106, we've got the daycare addition. Okay, next page over, page 8. I know there were some questions about the grade and the height and whether it's readable or decipherable.
Yeah, through your worship, yeah, the grade and the height definitions, if they're not adequate for the town, we can look at other options. We did develop these based on best practice, and we've had them reviewed by both a building inspector and by a British Columbian land surveyor to ensure that they are able to be interpreted for when a land surveyor has to survey the site and when a building inspector needs to actually assess if a building is going to be compliant with the height regulations in the bylaw.
Okay. Any comments on that, or is council okay with them?
No, you needed the interpretation that's later on for that to make sense, which is
Okay.
why it didn't work when you just had that in isolation, so.
Okay, great. Next page over. We continue through. Okay, page 10. There's some designations. Councillor Cole, are you still with us?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Okay. Just want to make sure. Okay, on to the next page. 11.
Go
Go ahead, Councillor Coe.
Yeah, on page 12, I have a comment.
Yeah, we'll go to page 12 then. I don't hear any comments from page 11.
Suite caretaker at the bottom. It's mentioned in a bunch of zones, but in CS2 it differs. It says dwelling caretaker.
Through your worship, yeah, that's just a relic from the previous bylaw. We can update that.
Okay.
Okay, next page over. So I noticed there's a note that says, will we need to remove or modify based on our decision? Councillor Downey, you had a question?
I do have a question around the veterinary clinic, and it states, means any building, structure, premises in which animals are treated for medical reasons, hospitalized or groomed. So right now, we are only allowed veterinary clinics to be located in our downtown core. For treatment, that's fine, but if they were to be hospitalized there, that definitely changes. It changes kind of possibly what that downtown core looks like, because when you house animals and keep them overnight, there are odors
And barking.
and noise that is part of that. How do we work around that?
There's various options. One, you can modify your definition to exclude those components. If you do proceed in that manner, you'd probably want to differentiate a different veterinary facility of some kind that allows for those uses to occur. The other is to not permit them in the downtown specifically, but allow them in other areas of the community. So there's various options that council has in that regard.
Councillor Cole?
So the existing vet clinic is zoned C1 right now, so it's actually not permitted. So if they wanted to, well, I guess they're grandfathered in, so they can do whatever they want. But we have them in zone C2 and light industrial. We don't really have it zoned for our downtown core for veterinarians.
Yeah, and as per the previous discussion, when you look at sort of specific downtown uses versus that intensity of increase, as we've talked about, as you step up and increase, your C2 is a service closer to a service commercial, and you step up, that is to reflect that increasing of intensity as you look at your zoning ramping up.
So if I'm hearing correctly, our zoning bylaw is fine as it is, because in fact, a clinic would not be able to establish itself in a C1 zone, which is our downtown core.
Under our proposed new zoning bylaw, that is correct.
Okay.
Councillor Barron has a question?
I just, I got thrown off with the grooming part there. What if the grooming's not done by the vet? That follow with personal services or something?
Yeah, like a pet groomer would fall under personal service.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't know of very many vets, maybe I'm wrong, that groom.
Anymore.
Oh, I guess anymore, yeah. I think they're either, yeah, hospitalized or treated.
Yeah, the intent of definitions like this is to allow as much flexibility as possible, but still to regulate a particular use. Right.
All right. Next page over to 14.
Oh, sorry, Mayor Wickstrom. Are we gonna discuss vacation rentals or I guess chickens we'll discuss later when it comes up, or two questions. Are we gonna discuss chickens? Or we'll do that later when we get to that?
I think we'll discuss it later when it comes up in the here. Okay.
And then same with vacation rentals. So it's just a page or two over, but I'm really struggling with us just saying no to vacation rentals. And we did that under under the advice that we are not able to say owners have to occupy the house to do vacation rentals. But then, so what are they doing in other communities?
Okay, hang on, before you do that, as I own a duplex, I'm going to excuse myself from this conversation, and then when you guys are done discussing, I'll come back in, so.
Really?
What does
Mayor
that,
Wickstrom, so
Well, because, I just, if somebody who is on the board of
Rotary.
Rotary can't be in a conversation, I would benefit financially from this actually staying in the bylaw. That's why I'm putting it out there.
well, then I might as well just go home. You know, I've got apartments and commercial buildings. We're not talking about, if we were talking about your specific property, then yes, that makes sense to me. But we're not, we're talking about broad, all properties.
Wanted to declare that, I will listen. I probably will choose not to be part of the conversation. I'll just stay on chair then, okay? Okay, go ahead. That's all I'm saying. It's my choice, so go ahead. You were going to talk about vacation rentals, Councillor Coe.
Before we move on to vacation rentals, just for sake of clarity, can we just get through the definitions and then we can go, okay, the definitions are pretty much done under these couple things, and then we can, I'm happy, because vacation rentals is a involved topic, and I think there's a lot of really interesting conversations to have there, but I don't want to lose the momentum of getting through the definitions, if that's all right by council.
That's fine. Go ahead.
So we're at veterinary clinic, water course. Is there anything else in those definitions that council would either like or would like to provide comment on?
Nope, I don't see any. So we'll go to the other page, page 14. Or whatever. It's the definitions we are.
Yeah. So if we hop to general provisions now, quickly, daycares, places of worship were added as permitted uses in any zone.
I wanted to double check on the page before the setbacks. We didn't, I know that was mentioned. Are we okay with, no, yeah. Were we okay with that page? Just definitions. Okay, great. Sorry, go ahead then. General provisions.
Yeah. So we added that. Public utilities, home occupations.
Any questions on those two pages?
can I get clarity? It says urban agriculture in accordance with the regulations in this bylaw. We talked about if we were to have hens in backyards that we would put in possibly a permitting process that would accompany that. Is that referring, or is that a whole other separate piece?
So urban agriculture would pertain to people growing food on their property, like, you know, gardens, things of that nature, etc. It could include hens, but you do not have to include hens in your urban agriculture. So if we scooch down, where was it? Urban chickens are specifically mentioned, but what we could easily do is remove that idea of hens as a component of urban agriculture. That has somewhat been done in regards to the amendment to the agricultural definition that removed the rearing of animals as a component of that. So it really comes down to that chicken conversation and how we proceed with that conversation.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Okay.
On the next page, page 16.5.4.4, buffer areas shall be planted and established with suitable vegetation. Plants must be provided to the town of Fort McNeil of such landscaping before commencement. I wanted to get clarity on that because I am aware of properties in Courtney where Strata is trying to change plants, and before they could do anything, and they spent thousands of dollars, landscaper drafting plans, submitting it to city council, having it refused, going back to the drawing board, thousands of dollars later just to change a hydrangea bush to a
Yep.
So is that what we're talking about here?
No, we're not. What is going on there is through a development permit process. Patio homes in Courtney are deemed what is known as intense residential. Intensive residential in Courtney patio homes triggers a full development permit process. So the full development permit process, if you amend or deviate from the originally approved permit to actually change things, you have to go through that crazy process, which is fundamentally the same as applying anew. And so that's what's occurring in that situation. This here is basically just providing notification to the town of what's occurring. We did have questions from an administrative standpoint. Does the town still want this? And I think providing the plans to the town is reasonable consideration, but this is not an approval process situation where the town has to review it and sign off.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next page over. Don't see any questions. We can go to the next page.
On 18, 5.8.3,
Mhm.
refer to the use of land for the placement of shipping containers shall be prohibited in all residential zones with the extension. There is no reference here to commercial zones, and and now we are starting to see shipping containers on properties in our C1 zoning. And where do we put some language in there, because it's easier to park containers on your property than build a new structure, but different appearances.
So the 5.8.4 is really to reflect the use for shipping containers for support of a business. If that's not clear enough, we can provide some clarity around that on how commercial purposes, commercial uses can utilize a shipping container for this storage purposes.
So just for clarification though, those shipping containers, like, do they not still have to meet building code, or is that only when somebody's occupying a space for more than just storage?
It's changing constantly under the code. Even for storage purposes, they are starting to require to meet code. The big thing with shipping containers is the ventilation and ventilation issues. Storage in a shipping container without ventilation, because a lot of them are airtight, can cause significant dangers. And so you are seeing more and more provisions through the code, through the building code, be put on shipping containers for that purpose. I suspect shortly, based on a lot of the challenges that are occurring, that shipping containers are no longer going to be a viable option for this for a lot of kinds of storage because of that.
So, and then I have another question, because we do have a shipping container next to the post office that we were told it's federal property, and so we don't have jurisdiction. So is that the case, and how do we prompt them to, if nothing else, beautify it?
With any of the crown corporations, whether it's federal or provincial, treat them like you treat anyone else. If they want to tell you to go away, they will tell you to go away, but you should be treating everyone exactly the same and administering your bylaws in the same manner. If they want to call the Interpretation Act into account or the Constitution because municipalities have no right over federal authorities, then they can call that into account, but you've done your paperwork and you've done your administration, your bylaw consistently with every person. And that's the thing, your bylaw is only effective if it's consistently applied, and so you treat everybody exactly the same, whether you have jurisdiction or not. The reality is, with the post office, you don't have jurisdiction, but make them say that, right?
Could that information be made to our staff, or you make a note, please, to our deputy? Thank you.
So is our right to ask for these containers to be removed then 5.8.6? Containers shall be removed within 14 days upon completion of construction.
That's correct.
Okay, so we're covered then, is what I'm hearing.
Based on my understanding, yes.
Okay.
Councillor Cole, I saw that you had a question.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion 5.8.3 that we remove the word residential, because I don't think we should have CCANs downtown commercial. You know, they're temporary, fine, but there's nothing stopping a commercial person from putting one on their property right now under our existing zoning?
No, there is no provisions to stop them currently.
So we do need to strike the reference to residential and make it all zones.
Yeah, I made a motion. I don't know if somebody seconded it, but that's what was my motion.
Second, we can discuss it.
Yeah, so Kevin, how does that work if we remove that? Like, would that cover downtown as well?
That would cover the entire community, including industrial lands.
We can put a clause into permit them in industrial lands, though, could we not? If that was necessary.
That is correct. So if we went, the use of land for placement of shipping containers shall be prohibited in all zones with the following exemptions. Containers shall be permitted in it as an accessory for a temporary period within residential, commercial property subject to the following, and then add a B. They are permitted to be used for storage within industrial zones or something of that nature if council wished for them to be continued use in industrial zones for storage purposes.
So since you made the motion, Councillor Cole, are you okay with that?
Yeah, amend to allow them in
Industrial.
M1, light industrial and heavy industrial.
My
Better.
Yeah, I like that language better.
It's clear.
And you're okay with that amendment?
Yeah.
Did you second it? Yeah, okay.
With them is exactly what he said, it's the venting, it's people who put gas and oil and
Yeah,
that kind of
yeah.
stuff in them, and then they become, like, the Office of the Fire Commissioner has done reports that are this thick on, they're just a bomb.
Well, the flip side is we hear all about community downtown beautification. Well, we got 2 containers sitting downtown.
Where's the second?
General properties. They're right across from each other. I mean, I'd love one too. I'm paying for storage. I can line them up in my parking lot too. And there's nothing to prevent me right now. Is that giddy up? Isn't it?
Okay, have you captured that then? And if you're not quite sure, just refer to Mac for that detail, okay? All right, all those in favor of that change? Opposed? All right, sorry, was that 4, Derek? Oh, well, pass anyway.
Yeah.
Didn't want to see you, yeah.
vacation rentals.
And a second, Councillor.
I'm on the next page.
Okay, never mind. We're on the next page. Go ahead.
In 5.91, bed and breakfast operations may be carried out. It goes on. There's no notice there, a requirement for a business license. However, we did note that vacation rentals needed a valid business license. So, a B&B is in essence a business.
Mhm.
Do we include that in here, or is that our business bylaw licensing?
Yeah, so you could certainly put it in here, but the business licensing bylaws would still apply whether it's stated in your zoning bylaw or not. I'm not a huge fan of referencing other bylaws in a bylaw because they often can change in things, but you certainly can put it in here. It's not, right? As long as we, if you want to add that in, as long as we put it in a manner that captures future amendments. Is that clear enough? Sorry, that was a bit long-winded.
What I was hearing is that we should put it in a reference in here, or a statement that a business license is required to operate a B&B and not rely on somebody pivoting to another document for clarification. I don't think that's what he said though.
I just think if we're doing it for one, we should do it for both.
But it's actually on my sheet here, vacation and short-term rentals is crossed out. It said bed and breakfast. So I guess that's the top discussion. If council's looking at short-term rentals as well, and then that would change everything in there.
Well, because I understand what
Both are
Kevin's saying.
businesses regardless.
Yeah. What Kevin's saying though is that your business license bylaw is gonna say for all these types of businesses, then if you put in a new business, now you have to make sure you're going back to that other one, and that's where you get a problem with your policies.
Oh,
Right?
okay.
So if you just keep your business bylaw, I hope I'm not putting words into your mouth, Kevin, but if you keep your business bylaw, licensing bylaw up to date, then somebody who's gonna start a B and B and they say, hey, what bylaws do we need to know? They would be told, you need to know this zoning one and you need to know the business licensing. That's the way I would do it.
That is correct.
Okay, great. I just wanted to know. Thank you.
Okay, and Derek, you wanted to bring up the short-term rental?
Yeah, I just,
Councillor Cool?
that's fine. Yeah, I'm just not sure why we're, a little unsure why we've axed vacation and short-term rentals, but we're still okay with bed and breakfast operations. Like fundamentally, aren't they the same thing?
No. My understanding from the conversation was before was the bed and breakfast. People live in the home and then they have somebody staying in their home. And in the other one, it doesn't have to be your primary residence. And so what I heard council say was until such time that we meet the housing shortage and until that's addressed, that short-term rentals were off the table.
And how is it that we can say the person has to live in the home for bed and breakfast, but we can't say that for vacation and short-term rentals?
If you may, your worship, so this bed and breakfast definition is your original. And so this is a conversation I've had actually with Pete and Councillor Mitchell with regards to it. So you could, if challenged in a court of law, this definition would fail. The reason this definition would fail is because it says owner occupied. You cannot control that as a local government through zoning, that an owner occupy the building that they actually own. You can't require it. It's just, under the Constitution of Canada, it's not permitted. So this is your existing definition of bed and breakfast. We could certainly mimic a definition similar to this for vacation rental if the town understands that there's a potential risk associated with it by trying to control that it's owner occupied. You can require that the building utilized for these kinds of uses is permanently, the principal residence is permanently occupied, right?
By the owner.
So there's a fundamental difference, right? You just can't dictate who is permanently occupying, right? It's just like we don't have the authority to define what a family is, things of that nature under the Constitution. So it's a nuance of the law. The risk is low if you wish as a community to go with this type of definition. The risk is low, but there is associated risk there.
So I have a question for you on how do other municipalities, because I know Whistler had the same thing at one time, like how do other municipalities, if they have low rental stock, overcome this, or like either limit short-term rentals or prohibit them for a time?
Yeah, there's various different ways you can see it happen. One of the ways you can do it, or one of the ways I've seen it done, is you can only do a vacation rental by rezoning. And so you get a special zone, like a single family zone with a vacation rental designation on that single family zone. And then you put criteria around the rezoning. We will only allow rezoning to permit vacation rentals if the vacancy rate is X, right? And so above a particular level. So if you have an under 2% vacancy rate, that's effectively in the real world, what it means to us is that there's nothing to live in, right? And so you can actually define it that way through criteria in your OCP and then mimic that with a new zone called single family home vacation rental in your zoning bylaw. That's one way I've seen it done. Another way I've seen it done is you put criteria around very similar to this, that a vacation rental means a single family dwelling that has the primary residence is permanently occupied for these purposes. And then you allow them in specific zones and specific zones only. Right. So there's multiple different ways. It really comes down to what the town wishes to achieve by allowing vacation rentals to occur within the community.
And if somebody's already doing one right now?
Under the existing bylaw, my understanding is that they're not permitted.
Right. So
Right.
they're not going to be grandfathered in either way.
No. So the only way something is ever grandfathered in is if they're legal under the existing legislation at time the new bylaw is changed.
So what's,
So, you know, what I could do, if this is helpful to council, because I know this is a challenging one, and it's a challenging one in every community I work in. I could draft up a couple different options on how you could permit vacation rentals. I could do sort of the rezoning approach option. Then I could do sort of you can permit it in any single family dwelling option with some language in that, separate from this specifically, so you can look at it and focus on it and how it could potentially work in your community, because it is such a complex issue that I don't think we'll solve it today, but I think we can have some really good conversation around it today, because it's very challenging.
I think that would be helpful. Does everybody agree? Yeah, we're all
Yeah.
nodding. Okay, that would be helpful. Kevin, if you could make a note and do that for us, we would appreciate
Certainly.
it. Thank you.
What I'll also do with that is I'll give a couple different options for definitions that will help. I'll take the definition that we originally proposed and I'll get a couple other definitions. Go, here's how you can define it. Here's how you can regulate it. Here's the various options that you have if you wish to proceed.
Okay, that's great. That would be perfect. Thank you. All right, the chickens. This beef love. So Anne Marie has talked about permitting process for chickens. We've also heard from staff that there's the option that we could do a variance permit, which would make very specific, you know, guidelines as to where the coop would be and that they have to get approval from their neighbors. What do you suggest here?
Again, as with vacation rentals, this is one of those challenging ones you see in a lot of different communities, and there's tons of different options for the community. So what makes sense for Port McNeill? What you find in very urban environments, like, I don't know, what's great in Vancouver? You know, there's lots of areas of Vancouver that allow for chickens, right? And they tend to reduce the number of animals. They tend to have really, really heavy cooping requirements and maintenance requirements, and they do it through two bylaws. You do it through your zoning bylaw to regulate sort of the siting of the structure, how that structure fits on the site, and then you do it through your animal control bylaw to be able to. The animal control bylaw gives you the fining mechanism, right? Much stronger than your zoning bylaw. Having the ability through animal control and summary offense tickets is actually very effective. So the summary offense ticket's like getting a parking ticket, right? You can do boom, boom, and just give parking tickets. It's quite a bit more effective. Zoning bylaws are a little bit more challenging to administer from a bylaw offense perspective. So my recommendation to you, if you want to allow chickens in the community, you allow them through your zoning bylaw. We put some provisions around the siting of the coop on the property, things of that nature to tighten that up. And then all of the nuisance issues, maintenance issues, permitting issues are done through your animal control bylaw.
Go ahead, Councillor Cole.
Kevin, so we got some development property, say, you know, the 500 houses by Hoy Bay or up on the hill.
Yep.
Could we, I'm sure we could do this where the developer wants chickens as part of, you know, selling his lots. So then we allow chickens on these new subdivisions. And I'm really struggling on this issue, but to me, it's kind of not fair that you moved in your neighborhood with expectation wasn't ever going to be livestock and chickens, et cetera, and all of a sudden, you know, that's the case. But if it's the old not in my backyard thing, but if you moved into a new subdivision and under the assumption that everyone there is going to be allowed to have chickens or not, then that's one way, maybe speaking to my council, that we could look at this. I'm heavily leaning towards saying no chickens myself. My main issue is we don't have bylaw enforcement. Like, we don't have bylaw enforcement officers. We don't have animal control people. So those 10 problem chicken people are going to cost lots of resources in our small town.
Yeah, the 2% tick 90%. That's
and I certainly will not support this urban chickens without having an electric fence as well, because our conservation officer recommended that, and I respect, he knows what he's talking about.
Mhm.
And that's my 2 bits.
Yeah, so I guess I have a bigger question, and it's one that we probably haven't expected. Is there such a massive demand for chickens in Port McNeil right now that this is needed? Right? Is this fundamentally needed for the community? And that's a question that we should be, with a lot of these, that we should be talking about. Is there regulation needed around urban chickens fundamentally? Or is this a reaction to the fact there's people growing chickens now and there needs to be a framework in place to administer the bylaw? So my feel, and I could be completely wrong, this is the latter. There's chicken issues now, so we're trying to put a framework in place to allow to regulate chickens, right? Which is fine. That's a fine approach. It's just understanding where we're coming at this, why we're coming at this in a particular direction, and then giving your team the tools that they need to actually be able to administer this bylaw effectively.
Sorry, I think, Kevin, we have people who have chickens in town who their neighbors don't even know they have chickens. It's then we do have a couple of chickens that are an issue because they go running down. There's but there are people who want to have chickens who have said, hey, can I have chickens? And they've been told, no, you can't, but maybe. So they're sitting, waiting patiently to find out how they can have chickens.
So further on Councillor Barron's point, this is one that I really want to see go to the public hearing. I want to hear from the public on this personally before I really go around. And I think then we go around and around and say, okay, this is what we heard, seems to be 50-50 or seems to be, to me, I want to hear from the public on this particular one.
You know, one thing that came up in our previous discussion was the, you know, what if there's chicken on duplexes, what things like that. What we've said here, they're allowed on all lots allowing urban agriculture uses, which is every lot in the community. You can restrict this. You can say you can only have chickens on single family lots, right? What that automatically does is it restricts chickens on lots that are, I believe, 450 square meters in size, 5,000 square feet. So you set that minimum lot size for the chickens to occur, which means it can only occur on larger lots. What that then allows you to do is have your larger setbacks, your larger, more space provided for chickens, things of that nature also, if you wish to proceed. That would be one of my first recommendations. If there is that issue, restrict it to what lots you'll allow it to occur on. That's your first course of action, right? Then if there's additional issues, we look at those issues, okay? You want to allow chickens? Well, what are the issues? Okay, smell, manure, the smell and the manure stuff, we can have that in here, but like I said, it's going to be more effectively administered through an animal control bylaw.
Yeah. Okay. All right, I think we'll hold that one for the public. I'm just looking at the time, 10:54. Let's take a quick bio break. Can you pause the recording and we'll be, is 5 minutes enough time or even 3 minutes?
Sure.
Sure. Okay, 10:55, see you at 11. And that can be paused, right? Oh, excellent. You know, I think we have to